Hello and welcome to Did You Know Gaming Extra. Today we'll be talking about leftover data in video games. During a game's development, some features aren't always completed in time for publishing deadlines. And for many games, these features remain within a game's data, never to be expanded upon. In 2017, an unused mission mode was discovered in the code for Mario Kart Wii, nearly a decade after its release. This mode would have been similar to Mario Kart DS's mission mode. And although the unused feature is missing code to make it fully functional, modder Mr. Bean 35000 VR, spectacular name, was able to reinsert the data back into the game, giving us a glimpse of what could have been. Missions would have ranged from performing a number of drift boosts to killing a number of enemies on a course or even performing wheelies. One of the missions was actually introduced during a few online competitions, where players had to knock a number of Mario Galaxy Top Man enemies off a stage. Mr. Bean explained that the game doesn't try and load the mission mode screens at all, even on the menus that would have contained them. So, in order to load them, he had to convince the game that it was supposed to, and was able to demonstrate some of the scenarios that were planned to be in the mode. While this data can be added back into its game, some titles store data which should not have been present in the first place. This includes AAA titles from major beloved series such as Shrek SuperSlam. Present on the disc of the PlayStation 2 version of the game is a file called strident.bin. Looking at this file, it can be determined that it is actually a full PSP game ISO for Tony Hawk's Underground 2. This was likely because both titles were developed by Shaba Games. It's common for developers to fill the empty space on a disk with something known as a dummy file, a file with no purpose other than taking up space on the disk or cartridge. In this situation, Super Slam's disk size was 1.6 gigabytes, with Tony Hawk's taking up almost half of that file size. Comparing the retail release of Underground 2 with the version on the Shrek disc, there are slight differences in file sizes, and the build of the game in Super Slam was compiled 2 days after the retail version. Another game with unused data is Homefront The Revolution, which contains an Easter egg that pleased many fans. In the game, the player is able to access an arcade machine which boots a demo of TimeSplitters 2, containing the first 2 levels of the game. Though by looking in the game's data, it's possible to find additional unused files. Alongside leftover data from TimeSplitters 2, there were unused files for TimeSplitters Future Perfect, as well as Second Sight, another game created by Free Radical Design. It's possible that plans were made to have even more playable demos of games, or perhaps even a fully fledged re-release of TimeSplitters 2. In 2012, Steve Ellis, co-founder of Free Radicals, stated that an HD downloadable version of TimeSplitters 2 was in development in 2008, and that he would have loved to have seen it released at some point. It's possible that this Easter egg is a remnant of that HD port. The history of how this came about is a little complicated. TimeSplitters was created by Free Radical Design, who would later change their name to Crytek UK before they encountered financial difficulty and sold the Homefront license to Deep Silver. The Crytek UK team was then transferred to Dambuster Studios, a subsidiary of Deep Silver, and work was continued on Homefront The Revolution, which had been in development for some time. And now it's time for this episode's random piece of trivia. Today we're looking at the Street Fighter the movie game, which released in arcades in 1995. Greg Rainwater played the role of T-Hawk in the film, and while he was scheduled to appear at a recording session to capture the character's digitized photo animations, he was never included in the final game. According to user unued from the Shoryuken message boards, who allegedly worked on the game, for whatever reason, Greg Rainwater did not show. It became apparent that after the first few digitizing sessions, many of the actors weren't coming up to do their sessions with us. This was largely the reason we were not able to leave Australia after the originally scheduled 2 weeks, and instead stayed for a month. In the end though, just about everyone was digitized, with just Ming Na and Greg Rainwater holding out. Fed up with wasting time, dealing with Hollywood personalities, and with members of our own team missing their families, we headed back home. Capcom arranged to have Chun-Li shot back in Chicago, but T-Hawk went missing. At the time, I figured it was no big loss in my book. I never liked T-Hawk anyway. If you enjoyed this episode of Did You Know Gaming Extra, be sure to give it a like and share it with your friends, and, consider subscribing if you want it. It's fast, it's free, it'll wash away your grime and open up your pores and make you look about 30 years younger. And then you just just lather it into your body.